Hi friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you some Prugly shades in my collection that I actually like. So you may remember a few months ago I posted a video talking about some of my least favorite shades in my collection, which all happen to be these Prugly colors. I admittedly am not the biggest fan of any kind of Prugly shade, which I think in a general way can be classified as any like yellow leaning green or brown, or you might have heard the nail community lovingly refer to them as baby poo colors. And yeah, not the biggest fan of that, but I have noticed that there are some colors that I really enjoyed that I've heard other people describe as Prugly. Even several years ago, I would look at this lineup and just be like, yeah, that's not for me, but I really like them. So let me show you these polishes. First up, we have Mooncat's Kelp Kingdom, which yes, I actually did include this in my initial video, but even then I said that I actually kind of like this shade. Like, I see it as having the most potential for being a true Prugly where it's also pretty, while the other shades that I shared in that initial video I just kind of thought were ugly. But yeah, I think this one is gorgeous. It has a super dark and murky seaweed kind of color that's somewhere between green and brown, but it's also packed with this reddish coppery magnetic shimmer and reflective glitter too. So it is the epitome of a simultaneously pretty and ugly shade. Next I have ILNP's Countryside, which just came out in the Vineyard collection. I've seen people describe this as Prugly, which is what caused this identity crisis as a Prugly hater, because I actually really like this one. It's a really dark olive green with this brownish kind of undertone. So again, I think the base color alone is what makes it a less desirable color compared to other greens, but it's packed with this really beautiful dainty holo that I just love so much from ILNP. It's just one of my favorite finishes, and I think this builds up so beautifully. Granted, I do love this more in 3 coats just because it deepens the color a little bit more. In a similar vein, I also had to include ILNP's Olive Grove, which is from the iconic Harvest collection a few years ago. It's a similar dark olivey green base, but this one is packed with a gold micro flaky or a large shimmer particle, which I think just elevates it so much. So since it's been a couple of years since I first reviewed this polish, I actually wanted to go back to that video to see what I said. And I did make the comment that it has a little too much yellow for my preferences, but I still ended up kind of liking it. So maybe this is one of the first that made me change my mind. Next up, I have Ave Emerald, which is obviously not an emerald, but rather a mossy olive green with a dainty hollow sparkle. So I'm sure you can see the pattern here with all these olive greens. Years ago, I just used to hate them, even though they are such a fall staple. But as you can see, I've really come a long way and I just really love them now. Granted, I definitely still am picky where they just have to have the right amount of yellow. On the first coat, I feel like this one and even the previous shades were really on the fence, but doing a second or third coat just deepens them up so much and makes them so beautiful. I have another ILNP. This one is Clover that came out in the Fairy Forest collection that released spring of last year. And I loved that whole collection, but this was easily my least favorite. I still appreciated it being included since I feel like it fit the vibes. But if you're familiar with me and my channel, you know that I've talked about not loving chartreuse. Any kind of yellow leaning green or green leaning yellow is just usually not my thing. I think I would say that this is my least favorite from today's lineup, but I still kind of like it, and I think it's mainly that hollow jelly formula because again, it's my favorite from ILNP, so they really are convincing me on these Prugly shades. Now moving on to some creams. The first one that I have is Holo Taco's Not Pressed, which came out just last year in the Down to Earth bundle. This one is described as a warm olive cream. And this is another one that I was like, oh, a lot of people are calling this a Prugly shade, but I don't see it that way. I actually really like this one. I feel like this one has such a great balance of being bright, but a little bit muted, perfect for fall. This is another one that I think just has the right amount of yellow in it for me, where if it was just any more, I probably wouldn't like it. And the last three shades that I have are all in the caramel kind of family. The first one that I have is Ave Sienna, which is described as a caramel cream. So similar to the olive greens that I mentioned before, caramel is another color that I just used to really hate, even though I knew it was such a quintessential fall kind of shade. There's just something about it that I didn't find super flattering, but sure enough, over the years, after a little bit more exposure to them, I've learned to really like them. I think I appreciate them just being a lot warmer than typical mustards. Then I have Ave Hayride, which is described as a light caramel cream. So I would maybe say that Hayride is Sienna's younger sister or something, because they're definitely very, very similar. But again, Hayride is a little bit lighter and maybe a touch warmer. It's kind of hard to tell the exact differences, or at least to describe them, but you'll see the differences in the collage in just a minute. And again, I just love that this has that warmth to it. I think that's what makes it so much more flattering in my opinion. And the last shade that I have is Holo Taco's Stay Grounded, which is from that same Down to Earth bundle as Not Pressed. This one is described as a warm, medium, tawny brown. I feel like this one can easily fit in the caramel sort of family as well, even though it's not as warm or orangey as like a true caramel. I personally would call this like caramel adjacent maybe. Either way, this is another one that just totally surprised me with how much I enjoyed it. I think it's just such a beautiful color, and it is just so warm and cozy for fall. And here is the collage of the Prugly shades I actually like. I think it's so funny to see just how similar these shades are. Like the caramels look the same, the chartreuses are pretty similar, and of course the dark olive greens are all very similar to each other. So it's kind of like I found my safe zone for each of these colors, where they just have the perfect balance of undertones. And I wanted to also include the collage of my least favorite shades from my initial video, just so you can kind of see the difference. I think these are generally a lot lighter, and you can tell that they are a bit more yellow leaning, which is what I keep saying, that's like the thing that makes it no longer a Prugly shade, but just kind of ugly. So that wraps up some Prugly shades in my collection that I actually like. So I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this video. I'm sure the Prugly lovers are going to be rejoicing for this arc. I mean, I'm pretty surprised that I made a video like this, because again, years ago, I would look at this lineup and just be like, no thank you. But it's just interesting to see over the years how my taste has changed and how much I've learned to love certain like emerald greens and warm caramel kind of colors. I will say that I am still pretty picky about my color preferences, where they just can't be too yellow. I feel like that's usually the problem with certain shades, that usually push them into the ugly territory for me personally. But I feel like these shades have the perfect amount of yellow in them, where I still like them, but I feel like in a general consensus they would still be considered Prugly. So I'm definitely curious to know how you think of these colors, if you love them or hate them. Let me know down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!